Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show where we take a stack of incredible source material and really unearth the most fascinating insights for you. Have you ever truly considered how a language comes to be? It's more than just words, isn't it? It's kind of a living history, a cultural fingerprint, and, well, a powerful bridge that connects people across time and even across those, seemingly rigid lines we draw on maps. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the fascinating, really intricate history of the Nepali language. Our primary source for this exploration is an introduction chapter from a history of Nepali literature. And look, this isn't just some dry academic text, it's actually a remarkable journey. It traces Nepali's ancient origins, its migrations across these vast landscapes, the profound political influences that shaped it, and maybe surprisingly, its wide reach across the South Asian subcontinent. These excerpts, they're from a scholarly history, so they provide a detailed, factual account. You get rigorous linguistic analyses, compelling historical anecdotes, and even some beautiful poetic insights that I think truly bring the story of this language to life.
So, what can you expect from this deep dive? Well, we're going to explore how a language is not merely a tool for communication, but really a dynamic entity, deeply shaped by and in turn shaping geography, politics, and the incredibly diverse peoples who speak it. We'll be looking at how Nepali emerged from these ancient roots to become a significant modern language, often demonstrating this remarkable capacity to sort of transcend the very political boundaries that define nations today. Okay, let's unpack this. So let's begin by grounding ourselves in the modern reality of Nepali. It's classified as a modern Indo-Aryan language, right? And what immediately strikes you is its impressively wide geographic reach. When we think of Nepali, our first thought is often, well, Nepal. But our sources quickly broaden that perspective. We find it spoken extensively in the Indian state of Sikkim and throughout the northern districts of West Bengal, where it's not just commonly spoken, but has actually been an official language in Darjeeling since, wow, way back in 1961.
It's quite early, yeah.
It is, but its presence extends far beyond that. You'll also encounter vibrant Nepali-speaking communities and significant populations in major states like Uttar Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh, and Punjab. In fact, its speakers are found in major towns and cities all across India, illustrating a widespread presence that might genuinely surprise many people. And this broad distribution within India is so significant that Nepali is officially recognized as one of the 15 major literary languages of India. Just let that sink in for a moment. It holds a place of distinction alongside giants like Assamese, Bengali, Gujarati, Hindi. I mean, the list goes on. Kannada, Kashmiri, Malayalam, Marathi, Oriya, Punjabi, Sindhi, Tamil, Telugu, and Urdu, all integral to India's incredibly rich linguistic tapestry.
It's quite a list.
It really is. And of course, English and Sanskrit also hold a special kind of enduring place within this framework. And the language's reach isn't confined just to India. It's also extensively used in the southern part of the Kingdom of Bhutan. Plus, the full integration of Sikkim with India back in 1974 further solidified Nepali's status and prevalence in that entire region. It really made it an undeniable linguistic force there. But here's where we get to a truly profound insight right at the outset. The renowned linguist Suniti Kumar Chatterjee observed that Nepali is a kind of lingua franca used widely through the Himalayan area. Kinike. Now that's a striking claim, isn't it? Especially when you consider the incredibly challenging, often isolating mountainous terrain of the Himalayas. What does this extensive geographical spread and its role as a lingua franca tell you about a language, even before we delve into its deeper history? It hints at something far more complex than just, simple national identity, doesn't it?
What's immediately fascinating here is that initial classification. Modern Indo-Aryan language. This places Nepali squarely within this massive linguistic family tree that stretches, well, all across the Indian subcontinent and even beyond. It means its roots are deeply intertwined with ancient Sanskrit and also the Prakrits, that group of Middle Indo-Aryan vernacular languages from which many modern Indian languages, including Nepali, later evolved.
Right.
This connection is fundamental because it tells us that while Nepali has certainly carved out its own unique path, its own trajectory, it's also an integral part of a much larger linguistic and cultural continuum, one that actually predates modern nation-states.
So it's older than the countries themselves, in a way.
Exactly. It's part of a historical lineage that connects it to some of the oldest human civilizations in the region. It's really deep. And regarding Chatterjee's observation about Nepali serving as a lingua franca in the Himalayas, well, the implications are indeed profound. A lingua franca is basically a common language used for communication between people who speak different mother tongues. For a language to achieve that kind of status in such a diverse, geographically challenging region like the Himalayas, it implies a significant degree of sustained historical interaction. This wasn't just accidental, you know. It suggests the existence of pretty robust trade routes, crisscrossing mountain passes, facilitating cultural exchange, and quite possibly a period of political or economic influence that allowed Nepali to bridge communication gaps among all these various ethnic and linguistic groups.
So it became a practical tool.
Precisely. It's not simply about people moving around. It's about a language becoming a crucial tool for regional cohesion, effectively transcending local dialects and tribal languages. It points to a really deep history of movement and interaction. And this broad presence of Nepali speakers in so many parts of India, well beyond Nepal's current political borders, immediately introduces a crucial, overarching idea that we'll see woven throughout our deep dive today. Language does not always adhere to modern political boundaries.
Right. Lines on the map.
Exactly. The linguistic map is often far more fluid, historically layered, and culturally connected than the political one. This recognition really sets the stage for our deeper historical exploration, as we'll see how the language's development often predates and sometimes seems to just disregard the more recent national divisions that define today's world. It compels us to look beyond those simplistic national labels and embrace a more nuanced sort of regional understanding of identity.
That idea of language flowing across borders, almost like the political lines don't really matter. It's beautifully and powerfully captured in the next part of our sources. Our material introduces us to Vijay Malla, who's a prominent contemporary poet from Nepal, and he wrote this poignant poem called Chorilai Manichitra Parhada, which translates to, while teaching map reading to a daughter. Malla uses this metaphor of maps and political borders to explore something much deeper than just geography. Listen to these first lines and notice the imagery he uses.
Ratoregatl Koryeko Sadla. Drawn by red blood are these boundaries.
Ketmati Laihai, like enclosures in every field. Hera, Harek Rashtrako Fatma. Look, to delimit nation each. The idea of boundaries drawn by red blood, I mean, that's a visceral, almost unsettling image of how nations define themselves, isn't it?
It really is.
It makes you think about the human cost sort of embedded in those lines on a map. And McCullough continues, making his message even more explicit, more universal. Yoho Bharat, Yoho Pakistan. This is India, this is Pakistan. Hindu Musaman Koragatl Muchchiko. Kneaded with the blood of Hindu and Muslim. Yahihu Chachamahan. It's the line, bold. Jahera, wherever you look. Rato Ragata Ladeko Chagera. Drawn are the lines by red blood.
Again with the blood.
Yeah. Parevalaganjakma Bandagadayahai. Like the pigeons encaged. Manis Chan Bandi Askorma. I'm going to close in these traps. As I read that second stanza, it really hit me. This poem isn't just about maps, is it?
No, not at all.
It feels like Mahal is hinting at something far more profound about the human experience of borders and the way they impact people.
Absolutely. This poem by Vijay Malla is incredibly powerful. It vividly captures the pain and, frankly, the sheer artificiality of political divisions. It particularly evokes the traumatic partition of India and Pakistan and its profound, often brutal impact on individuals and communities.
Right, that historical context is key.
Definitely. Malla's imagery of boundaries drawn by red blood and men being closed in these traps like pigeons encaged. It's a searing indictment of how these arbitrary political lines can lead to immense suffering. It drives home our central theme that language, religion, and culture inherently, well, they transcend political frontiers. They possess a fluidity and a connectivity that national boundaries often attempt and spectacularly fail to contain.
Yeah.
Malla's words are a striking reminder that identity, unlike lines on a map, cannot be so easily compartmentalized or, severed. And this idea of a deep shared heritage across the subcontinent, it's further echoed by other foundational figures in Nepali literature. So it's not just Malla feeling this way. We see it in Panubhakta Acharya, who's widely regarded as the Nepali national poet. He wrote, Bartha Durlava Janos Fardopamiko Janma Janali, which translates to something like, let people know it rare to be born in far out land.
Wow, the national poet of Nepal celebrating being born in far out land.
Exactly. Think about that. And then there's Lakshmi Prasad Devkota, considered perhaps the most significant poet of modern times in Nepal. He sang, Miolakta Malata Priyakata Prachina Sasarako Hamro Harata Varshako Udayako Hema Prasarako, meaning roughly, dear are to me fond stories of the ancient world, of our Harat, of her rise shining forth as snow glow. This recurring emphasis on Bharatvarsha, the Indian subcontinent, by these really central figures of Nepali literature, it's absolutely crucial to understanding the language's deep past.
It seems unavoidable.
It really is. It unequivocally underscores a profound shared cultural and historical space that existed and thrived long before the emergence of modern nation-states like India and Nepal. This isn't just some poetic sentiment, it's a vital historical truth. Our source explicitly states that the birth and growth of Nepali took place in Bharatvarsha, or the Indian subcontinent, long before the emergence of political India and Nepal.
Right.
This means that to truly understand Nepali's history, its evolution, and its contemporary status, we absolutely must reference its development within this broader Indian context, especially when considering its status and reach post-1947. And this raises an important question for us. How can a language belong to a region, a civilization, and not just a single country?
Yeah.
It speaks to a much older, more organic formation of identity, one that sort of defies those simplistic nationalistic boxes.
That idea really reshapes how we think about linguistic belonging, doesn't it? It makes me wonder, if identity isn't bound by modern maps, how far back do we need to go to truly understand Nepali's foundational elements? And that leads us directly into tracing the ancient roots of Nepali. We know it's an Indo-Aryan language, but how far back do its roots truly extend? That's not just centuries, we're talking millennia. Our source reveals that the earliest form of a speech element that connects to Nepali is found in the Rig Veda, one of the oldest sacred texts of Hinduism, composed somewhere between, 1500 and 1200 BCE?
That's the time frame, yeah. It's incredibly ancient.
This is truly a fascinating link, grounding the language in one of the foundational cultural and spiritual pillars of the subcontinent. The connection to Sanskrit is also quite clear and direct. Professor R.L. Turner, in his seminal work, A Comparative and Etymological Dictionary of the Nepali Language, published way back in 1931, he posits that Nepali descended directly from Sanskrit. He meticulously highlights the strong correspondence in grammatical structure and just a vast amount of shared vocabulary between the two languages, showing a clear lineage. However, here's an intriguing detail that adds a layer of mystery and, ongoing academic debate. While its Sanskrit descent is undeniable, the exact position of Nepali within the Indo-Aryan family is a moot question.
Right, the moot question.
Yeah. This means linguists are still actively debating its precise branch or subgroup within this vast, complex family tree. It suggests its evolution wasn't maybe a perfectly linear path, and before it settled into its current name, Nepali, this language went by a whole host of other names. It reflects shifts in geography, dominant groups' perceptions over time. It was widely called Kaskura, Parbate, or Parbatia, and sometimes simply Gorkali. Interestingly, Hanabhakta Acharya, the national poet we just mentioned, sometimes referred to it simply as Bhasha, meaning the language, just the language.
As if it was the only one that mattered in that context.
It's exactly a testament to its pervasive use. In the 16th century, it was even mistakenly referred to as Bengali in some foreign accounts, which highlights the kind of fluid understanding of regional languages back then.
Mm-hmm.
Then, in the 19th century, a document named it Girirajabhusha, or the Speech of the King of Mountains, which vividly points to its geographical origins and perhaps a growing sense of regional pride. Our source then poses a crucial question. Why was Nepali generally known as Kaskura, or the speech of the Khasas, till the last century? What do these shifting identities tell us about the language's journey and the complex forces that shaped its very name?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, placing Nepali firmly within the Indo-Aryan family, which itself is a branch of the larger Indo-European language family, that immediately tells us about its deep historical connections to a vast array of languages spoken across Europe, Iran, and India. The fact that its earliest traceable speech element is found in the Rig Veda is incredibly significant.
Yeah, it really is.
It doesn't just mean a connection to an ancient text. It means a connection to an ancient civilization, its spiritual practices, its intellectual traditions. This deep root in Sanskrit, the classical language of India, provides Nepali with this vast cultural and historical legacy that informs so much of its core vocabulary and grammatical structure. It really underscores a continuity that spans millennia. Now, regarding that moot question about its exact position within the Indo-Aryan family, this debate often arises because, languages don't evolve in perfect isolation.
Right. It's messy.
It's messy, or in perfectly straight lines. They're constantly influenced by various linguistic branches through contact, by the migratory patterns of populations, and by the influence of other language groups they come into contact with. For Nepali, this complexity likely stems from its unique geographical position, sort of at the crossroads of different linguistic families, Indo-Aryan and Tibeto-Burman, and the diverse populations who adopted it over time. This led to the development of unique characteristics that make its precise classification within the Indo-Aryan subbranches a subject of ongoing academic inquiry. It just highlights the dynamic nature of linguistic evolution. And the evolution of Nepali's names, from Kaskura to Parbate, Parbatya, Gorkhali, and finally Nepali, is fascinating because each name reflects a shift in dominant populations, political power, or geographic focus over time.
Like chapters in its story.
Exactly. Karbate, meaning mountain dialect, for instance, is particularly telling. It clearly indicates its origin in the mountainous regions. The question of Kaskura is, as you noted, absolutely central to understanding this linguistic journey. Brian H. Hodgson, a prominent British resident in Nepal in the early 19th century, in his influential Notices on the Languages, Literature, and Religion of Nepal and Tibet from 1828, he specifically noted Kaskura as the prevalent language spoken in the immediate western vicinity of Nepal.
Okay, so geographically specific at that point.
Yes. And he also observed its close relationship to Kumaoni and Garhwali, two languages still spoken today in the Kumaon and Garhwal regions of Uttar Pradesh, India. This indicates that Kaskura had an early, widespread presence that extended well beyond the modern borders of Nepal, speaking to its older, broader regional identity. Hodgson's work also provides a truly fascinating insight into the linguistic diversity of the region during his time. He actually meticulously counted 13 distinct and strongly marked dialects just in the mountainous parts of the Kingdom of Nepal. 13 distinct dialects. These included Khaz, or Parbatya, alongside others like Magar, Gurung, Sunwar, Kachari, Hayu, Chepang, Kusunda, Murmi, Newari, Kiranti, Limbuan, and Lipchan. And crucially, he noted that all of these, except Khaz or Pargatia, belonged to the Tibeto-Grumman family.
Wow. So Khaz was the Indo-Aryan outlier in that group.
It was. This highlights that while Akaskura was spreading and gaining prominence, the region was, and to a great extent still is, this vibrant tapestry of different language families coexisting. It gives us a strong sense of the complex, multilingual landscape into which Nepali grew, and from which it undoubtedly absorbed various influences.
That's incredible. It paints a vivid picture of intense linguistic contact and, well, in some cases, assimilation. And it brings us directly to the Khasis, who clearly played an absolutely central, foundational role in the story of Nepali language. So before we dive into their empire, can you help us understand who these people were exactly and what made their migration so instrumental to the language's journey?
Right, the Khasis. They were, as our source tells us, an Indo-Aryan ethnic group. Their origins lie in the northwest of the Indian subcontinent, and their history is indeed profoundly intertwined with the very development and spread of what we now call Nepali. And they weren't just some minor tribe, they were historically significant. The Khasis are mentioned in ancient texts like the Puranas, those foundational Hindu religious texts. In Kalhana's monumental historical chronicle, the Rajataranine, which details the history of Kashmir, and even in Greco-Roman accounts. That underscores their widespread presence and historical importance across the ancient world. It's a testament to their deep roots in the fabric of the subcontinent. And you touched on a crucial point. Kaskura was the designated name for Nepali until relatively recent times.
Right, not just an old name.
Exactly. It signifies a deep historical identity. The fact that even the 1971 census report of Nepal interchangeably used Kaskura and Nepali speaks volumes about how synonymous these terms were and how deeply rooted the Khas identity remained in the language even into the late 20th century. It wasn't just a historical footnote, it was a living descriptor for many. But the Khasis impact wasn't just linguistic, it was imperial. They formed a great kingdom or empire that covered a vast territory.
How vast are we talking?
We're talking about a significant historical entity that stretched across western Nepal, incorporating parts of Garhwal and Kumaon and what is now modern-day Uttarakhand, India, and even extending into southwest Tibet. Yeah, this was a powerful, influential entity that left an indelible mark on the region's cultural, political, and, of course, linguistic landscape.
Oh.
Understanding the Khasis' rise and fall is really central to understanding the very trajectory of the Nepali language.
That makes perfect sense. So this raises an important question. How did this folk movement of the Khasis actually happen? And what were the linguistic consequences?
Well, the source suggests that their migration was a significant folk movement, possibly driven by a search for Lebensraum, that German term meaning living space or territory.
Right.
As they moved in a southeasterly direction along the Himalayas, as they ventured into these new habitats, they encountered various indigenous Mongoloid populations who had long inhabited those mountainous areas. Now, this interaction wasn't just a casual meeting, it led to a crucial process of acculturation, meaning that many of these indigenous tribes adopted the Indo-Aryan speech of the Khassas. This acculturation was a powerful, organic mechanism for the spread of the Khassa language. It extended its reach far beyond the original Khassa communities and really laid the groundwork for its widespread use across the Himalayan region.
So language spread not just by conquest, but by mixing.
By cultural exchange and integration, exactly.
Yeah.
It shows a more complex picture than just imposition. And the evidence for this extensive Khassa empire is substantial and compelling. A large Khassa empire did emerge around the 12th century AD in western Nepal and parts of what is now Uttar Pradesh, India. We have archaeological finds in western Nepal, meticulously documented by the Nepali scholar Yogi Narahari Nath, which strongly support the existence and scale of this empire.
Oh, physical evidence.
Physical evidence. Furthermore, the renowned Italian Orientalist Professor Giuseppe Tucci's pioneering work in the region, including his discoveries related to newer Malla dynasties, has brought to light numerous epigraphs. That is, inscriptions on stone or metal, written specifically in Khas-Kura, which is essentially Old Nepali or Modern Nepali. His detailed accounts in The Discovery of the Malla from 1960 and preliminary report on 2 scientific expeditions to Nepal from 1956 provide rich details of archaeological evidence, including even Tibetan texts found among these discoveries. It further solidifies the historical existence, the influence, and the sheer geographic reach of this Khassa empire.
So the inscriptions are like linguistic snapshots.
Exactly. They provide direct linguistic snapshots showing us how the language was used in formal decrees, in record keeping, how its grammar was structured, even hints at its vocabulary in that specific era. It's direct evidence of a language of state, not just some folk dialect. We even have records of specific Khassa kings whose names appear in Old Nepali inscriptions, providing a chronological anchor to their reign. These include figures like Asokamala, whose inscriptions date to 1280 AD, Aditimala from 1321 AD, Punyamala from between 1328 and 1336 AD, and Prithimala from between 1356 and 1365 AD.
Real historical figures.
Real historical figures. These aren't just names in dusty archives. These are the very rulers whose administrative and religious decrees were written in Khas-Kura, solidifying its role as a language of power and administration. There's even a Sanskrit inscription from Bodh Gaya, dated 1274 AD, where Asokachala, a Khassa king, describes himself as Kasarajatiana, meaning king of the Khassa country. That underscores their royal lineage and widespread recognition across the broader subcontinent. However, like all empires, this Khassa empire eventually faced a period of decline and fragmentation.
What happened?
Well, between about 1287 and 1334 AD, the empire encountered significant external pressures, particularly the Muslim conquests of Rajputana and Western India. This led to a substantial influx of Brahmins and Rajputs who were seeking refuge moving into Nepal.
Okay, so external pressure causing internal shifts.
Precisely. And internally, the empire fragmented into numerous petty princedoms, losing its centralized authority. This disintegration caused a further eastward movement of Khassa speakers, a continuation of that folk movement, which maybe inadvertently helped spread the language even wider across the central and eastern Himalayas.
Interesting consequence.
Yeah, it's also worth noting that Parbet, or Malabam, was considered the predominant dialect of Khassa speech, meaning mountain dialect, directly reinforcing its geographical origin and its deep connection to the Himalayan landscape. This continuous movement and interaction truly highlight the dynamic, ever-evolving nature of language spread, often intertwined with political and social upheaval.
So we've traced the incredible sweep of the Khassa's empire and their language, Khas-Kura. But every empire, no matter how vast, eventually faces new dynamics, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for Nepali, that crucial turning point seems to be the rise of the Gorkha kingdom, which brought about a significant shift in the language's very identity. Back in the 14th century, the Khassa Empire's capital was located at Sija, or Semja, in Jumla, in western Nepal. That made it a significant center of influence for the language. The narrative then shifts decisively to the rise of the Gorkha kingdom. It was Prithvignana Saha, the ruler of Gorkha, who played this really transformative role here.
Mm-hmm.
In 1769, he achieved a monumental feat by successfully conquering and unifying Nepal, establishing a single coherent kingdom out of numerous fragmented states. His descendants continued this expansion, consolidating and extending the kingdom's reach even further. Now, this political unification had a direct and profound impact on the language. The Khasa speech that was specifically spoken in Gorkha, the conquering kingdom, gained immense prominence. Yeah. And due to the ascendancy of Gorkha, it was elevated to the undeniable status of the official language of the newly unified kingdom. This wasn't just organic linguistic drift, was it? It feels like a deliberate and powerful act of standardization driven by political power. This direct link between political power and language standardization feels like such a recurring theme throughout history. Are there any particular parallels that come to mind, just briefly, that help illustrate how profoundly political will can reshape a linguistic landscape?
What's fascinating here is precisely that direct link you mentioned between political ascendancy and linguistic standardization. The rise of the Gorkha kingdom and its unification of Nepal meant that the dialect of Kaskura spoken in Gorkha became the standard, eventually known as Gorkhali. This process of standardization is complex, and as the source points out, it's actually still ongoing. You still find regional variations and even mutually unintelligible dialects persisting in remote areas despite the unifying efforts.
Right, standardization takes time.
It does, and this is a common pattern. When a dominant political entity emerges, its language or dialect often becomes the prestige form, the standard. We see this in the history of many languages. Think about how the Parisian dialect became standard French, or how the dialects spoken around London became standard English.
Okay, yeah.
The names Kaskura or Parbati Gorkhali represent the outcome of these conquests, indicating that the language had spread to other principalities even before they were militarily conquered, likely through cultural influence, trade, and administrative necessity. It's important to understand the complex linguistic diversity that existed within Nepal even as Gorkha was rising to prominence. Besides Sanskrit, which was the classical language of learning and religion, and the Tibeto-Burman Newari language spoken by the indigenous Newer kings in the Kathmandu Valley, these Newer kings actually used Maithili in their literary compositions.
Maithili, another Indo-Aryan language.
Yes, exactly. This indicates a sophisticated, multilingual environment where different languages held different registers and roles. Khasa speakers, despite their own distinct Indo-Aryan language, were often employed by these newer kings and even made permanent settlements in the valley outskirts. This suggests a fascinating dynamic of linguistic coexistence, influence, and interaction even before the Gorkha conquest. The conquest of the Sena kingdom, which covered large parts of central and eastern Nepal by Gorkha, further illustrates this linguistic complexity. The Sena kings primarily used Maithili, and interestingly, the Tibeto-Burman Mongoloid Kiratas, who acknowledged the Sena house, also used Maithili.
So Maithili had a strong footing there too.
It did. This pre-existing linguistic landscape, where Maithili had a strong presence even among Tibeto-Burman groups, was absorbed and significantly influenced by the expansion of Gorkha and the spread of Gorkhali. It wasn't just an empty slate for Gorkhali to fill, Historical accounts from early European observers also provide direct evidence of this linguistic assimilation process. For instance, Hamilton's observations from 1802-3, recorded shortly after the Gorkha unification, note the rapid progress of Khasa speech in extinguishing Aboriginal mountain dialects.
Extinguishing, that's a strong word.
It is. This wasn't just passive adoption, it suggests an active process of linguistic assimilation that went hand in hand with the political expansion and administrative consolidation. So the widespread use of Nepali couldn't have resulted from military conquests alone. The political and administrative unity that the Gorkha kingdom imposed, combined with the official language status given to Gorkhali, significantly accelerated its spread and dominance. It really demonstrates how political will can fundamentally reshape an entire linguistic landscape, creating a new standard where a multitude of dialects once thrived.
That's a powerful demonstration of how language and power are intertwined, isn't it? It almost forming a feedback loop. And as the Gorkha kingdom expanded, Nepali's presence continued to grow, eventually catching the attention of European scholars. This led to broader recognition and systematic documentation. It's fascinating how external observation and academic rigor can sort of cement a language's status on a global stage. For instance, our source notes that Castiano Belligati, a European, published the first work listing Nepali as an important language way back in Rome in 1771.
1771, yeah, that's early.
It really is. That's a full 250 years ago, highlighting its early recognition outside the subcontinent itself. This early European interest quickly led to more systematic linguistic studies, which were crucial for documenting and, standardizing Nepali. Reverend William Carey of Serampore, a prodigious scholar and missionary, included Nepali in his collection of 33 different languages of the Indian subcontinent. He recognized its significance among that diverse linguistic landscape. Later, J.A. Aiton's A Grammar of the Nepalese Language, published in 1820, provided an English grammar of Nepali, complete with Devanagari illustrations. That made the language accessible to a wider scholarly audience. And even before that, Kirkpatrick had already described Parbate and published a vocabulary of the language.
Right.
These early efforts by foreign scholars provided crucial external validation and structure to Nepali, helping to map its grammar and lexicon in a way that I guess homegrown scholarship would later build upon. This increasing recognition eventually led to a significant official name change. The language was formerly referred to as Nepali or Nepalese in the 19th century, moving away from those earlier, more regional or ethnic names like Kaskura, Parbate, or Gorkhali.
A conscious shift?
It seems so.
Yeah.
This shift was notably propagated by institutions like the Nepali Sahitya Sammelan in Darjeeling in 1924. It signals a conscious, collective effort to establish a unified and distinct identity for the language, reflecting perhaps a broader sense of national or linguistic pride. Now, when cultures and languages meet, what happens? They borrow, right?
Inevitably.
Our source shows that Nepali, throughout its history, has been this dynamic linguistic melting pot. Its vocabulary showcases words adopted from far-flung languages like Persian, Arabic, Turkish, Portuguese, and English, a clear testament to centuries of trade, conquest, and cultural exchange across vast distances. But it also adopted words from other Indo-Aryan speeches within the subcontinent, such as Maithili, Rajasthani, Bhojpuri, Awadhi, Hindi, and Bengali. That shows continuous regional interaction and borrowing.
A lot of internal exchange, too.
Exactly. However, despite all these influences, Sanskrit consistently remains the primary source of borrowing, underpinning its classical roots and connecting it back to that ancient legacy. Finally, let's talk about the script, which often provides such a powerful visual anchor for a language. What's truly remarkable with Nepali is the consistency here. The Devanagari alphabet has been used for Nepali from the very beginning.
Right, from the Khasa Empire.
Yeah. Even the ancient Khasa Empire epigraphs, which date back centuries, were engraved in this script, and it has been faithfully retained throughout Nepali's long and complex history. This stands in stark contrast to Newari, a different and equally rich language of the region, which, despite its own long history, famously had, 9 different Brahmi-derived scripts in use at various times?
9, yeah. Quite a few.
It highlights just how stable and unifying the Devanagari script has been for Nepali, providing a consistent medium for its written form across diverse regions and time periods.
This raises an important question, though. What's the broader significance of this early European documentation? These linguistic studies by scholars like Belagati, Carey, Aiton, and Kirkpatrick, they were far more than just academic exercises.
Right, they had real impact.
They really did. They brought a structured, systematic approach to understanding Nepali grammar, phonology, vocabulary. This external perspective played a crucial role in its standardization and, crucially, helped place it within broader linguistic frameworks recognized internationally. This external validation undoubtedly contributed to its eventual official naming and wider acceptance, both regionally and globally. It helped elevate Nepali from just a collection of dialects to a recognized, documented language of scholarship. And the fact that Nepali is such a melting pot of linguistic influences is a profound reflection of its history of migration and cultural contact. The source indicates that the majority of present-day Nepali speakers were originally Tibeto-Burman populations who, through that process of acculturation we discussed earlier.
Right, adopting the Khasa language.
Exactly. They adopted the Indo-Aryan speech of the Khasas. This explains the fascinating blend of features in Nepali. It's not just a language that passively received borrowings. It also absorbed certain grammatical and phonetic features from the languages of its adopted speakers. Grierson, a prominent linguist, for instance, suggested that features like honorific conjugations and agent postposition verbs, which are common in Tibeto-Burman languages, were actually imported into Nepali by these original Tibeto-Burman speakers.
So it was a two-way street linguistically.
It showcases a truly reciprocal linguistic influence, yeah. It's a testament to how language adapts and evolves with its speakers, not just through top-down imposition, but through deep, continuous interaction and, cross-pollination. And the consistent use of the Devanagari script from the very beginning, that is indeed a powerful unifying factor that often goes unappreciated.
You mean beyond just being able to read old stuff?
Well, yes, that too. A consistent script helps preserve a language's historical record, making ancient texts readable centuries later. But it also facilitates widespread literacy by providing a common written form. And it strongly promotes standardization across diverse regions and communities, allowing for a shared literary tradition to develop. When you contrast this with Nuwari, which, as you mentioned, historically used 9 different Brahmi-derived scripts, you can see how that single enduring script for Nepali would have provided an incredibly stable bedrock for its development and widespread adoption. It helps solidify its identity and facilitate its literary growth throughout its long and complex history. It's a quiet but absolutely key element in its enduring legacy and its ability to maintain coherence across its vast spread.
What an incredible journey we've taken today, really diving deep into the history of the Nepali language. We've traced its ancient Indo-Aryan roots, connecting it all the way back to speech elements found in the Rig Veda, which honestly is just mind-boggling in its scope.
It really is ancient.
We've seen how it was shaped by the rise and fall of the powerful Khasa Empire, spreading its influence through migration and acculturation across the Himalayas, eventually becoming that crucial lingua franca in that incredibly diverse and geographically challenging region. We then explored its standardization under the unifying force of the Gorkha kingdom, transforming from a prominent regional dialect into the official language of a newly unified nation. And we've learned about its rich tapestry of influences, borrowing words and even grammatical features from Persian, Arabic, European languages, and numerous other Indo-Aryan speeches, all while keeping Sanskrit as its foundational wellspring. Finally, we saw how it gained international recognition through early European scholarship and solidified its identity with the adoption of the unified name Nepali, all held together by the consistent use of the Devanagari script throughout its long and dynamic history. What we've seen today isn't just the history of a language, is it? It feels like a profound blueprint of human resilience and interaction.
That's a good way to put it.
The ultimate insight, maybe, is that language, like water, always finds its way, shaping and being shaped by the terrain of history, long outliving the lines we try to draw on maps.
Indeed. When we truly study a language like Nepali, we're not just looking at grammar and vocabulary, we're witnessing a profound testament to human movement, resilience, and the enduring power of shared stories and identity. An identity that often transcends the very political maps drawn by human hands.
Yeah.
It makes us realize that every word we speak carries echoes of ancient migrations, forgotten empires, and countless acts of cultural exchange. Consider how many other languages, in their own unique ways, might tell similar tales of connection and complexity, just waiting for us to uncover their hidden histories. It truly makes you wonder about the invisible threads that connect us all through language, doesn't it?